We do know and recognize that Borussia Dortmund now somehow, some way, have the opportunity to lift the title this weekend with a 2-point advantage over Bayern Munich. I have no idea how they managed to get that on the last game of the season, but yet somehow Dortmund have it in their hands, and they're at home this time against Mainz, where they do have
Ian, I've got a question for you about this. I had a look through the odds earlier for Dortmund at home to Mainz. How on earth are the odds so unlikely towards a draw and B, Mainz getting a result there? Because for me, it feels like like you said it earlier, Dortmund, you can't sort of bet on them for anything other than making life hard for themselves. So why are the odds making it seem so unlikely?
Okay, the problem you've got here, and I'll tell you the odds because I actually know them, and they're actually inked into my head right now after seeing them. Borussia Dortmund are minus 700 to get the job done at home in in the Bundesliga on the final match day, and Mainz are plus 1,400 on the money line just to win that game, which is absolutely ridiculous. Borussia Dortmund have scored 53 goals, if I'm not mistaken, at home, and if they're playing well, definitely at home is where they are playing well. On the road is where they're completely vulnerable. Even last week, I mean, they were a man up for a majority of that game last week, and it took them a minute, and you thought, oh no, surely they're not going to mess this up against 10 men. But this is Dortmund. And I will say this, though, JJ, it's Sebastian Haller who's turning up for Borussia Dortmund more than anyone else. And what a story this would be, Michael, if Sebastian Haller goes from not being able to begin a season because of testicular cancer and having to go through chemo to, at the end of the season, I think he's got 9 goals already, by the way. To the end of the season, and if I'm not mistaken, he scored in the last 3 competitive games, 5 goals maybe, but to lifting a Meisterschale. That would be some story right there. And we must also mention that Gio Reyna scored last week as well. And he is also playing a big role in this success because he's got a lot of last-minute winners for them.
Well, this would be the sort of fairy tale season that Dortmund need. The swan song for Jude Bellingham, as Fabrizio said, he is prepping to move to Real Madrid. And this is a Dortmund team that going into the Champions League knockout stages, that we were very high on them. We were saying that they could go and beat Chelsea. And then the injury that derailed a lot of things for Dortmund, Adeyemi. His injury, he was the best player, him and Julian Brandt. They were the 2 best players coming out of the World Cup. And then injuries start going, forms start going, consistency start going. But when you're given a chance the way they have, because of the absolute shithousery, and I think we can still cuss on this show, but the absolute shithousery at Bayern Munich, you got to take it. And they have. When you look at this Mainz match, if they had played Mainz maybe 2 months ago, I would have been very nervous for Dortmund because Mainz, they were the giant killers hovering around 7th. But Mainz has been absolute crap as of late. Can't really find themselves on the road or at home. Dortmund will win this match. I will have my, I don't even know, my Hefeweizen to stick with the German culture. I will have my Hefeweizen this size to celebrate in honor of Gio Reyna. Marco Reus even coming off the bench. He deserves a Bundesliga medal. He's been through a lot through injuries and been waiting for a moment like this again.
Oh, that bottle's pretty small by German standards. I mean, they love liter upon liter of their white beer. I've got a question for Ian actually, and that is relating to Bayern. Now we know that it's not in their hands anymore, and if Dortmund win, that's it. The title is done. But most importantly, that is a trophyless season for Bayern and a trophyless season on Thomas Tuchel's watch. Now, I don't think that Bayern would be silly enough to sort of, wield the axe just yet because he's only been in the job for a couple of months. But that is a disastrous start to Tuchel's tenure in Bavaria. What does that also mean, do we think, looking, forward to this summer? Are Bayern going to try and overhaul that squad, or are they going to look to strengthen in key positions and let Tuchel just spend more time with the players? Or does it go even deeper than that? And do they have to root out, some potentially, deep-rooted issues, behind the scenes?
Well, first and foremost, there's absolutely no guarantee that Bayern Munich will actually win this weekend against Cologne. Let's put it correctly. We have no idea if Bayern turn up their away to Cologne, which is a difficult place to go play. So I really don't know if they're going to get a result this weekend. So even if Dortmund don't win, they might still win the league anyway, which is crazy to say. I think we all know and recognize that Thomas Tuchel is a good coach and he is someone who is well respected in the game. But he took over Bayern Munich. They were still in the Champions League. They were still in the German Cup. They were top of the Bundesliga. Within a month, they were out of the Champions League. They were out of the German Cup, and they were off the top of the table. Is it his fault? Absolutely not his fault. But he is the man in charge of this club going forward. And he is the man who's responsible for trying to get results. They brought him in to get results in the Bundesliga and to get results in the Champions League because they wanted to win the Champions League. Quickly thrown out of that competition and beaten, and well beaten, by the way, in the German Cup by Freiburg, if I'm not mistaken. It's gone horribly wrong for Thomas Tuchel. But off the field is where my concern is more, JJ. It's more about the political side of things. And I've vented on this show so many times about Hasan Salihamidzic and Oliver Kahn being in charge of this club. It seems to have gone horribly wrong for both of these guys. I don't care what anyone says. You could be a great football player, but it does not mean to say you're going to be a great coach or a great executive or a great sporting director or a great president. It just doesn't. You're a legend of the game and an icon of the game. Salihamidzic, not so much. But I will say that these two deserve more of the criticism for one, allowing Lewandowski to leave the club. How on earth you let a goal scorer who was the glue to that Bayern Munich, JJ? I hope you agree with me as well, Mike, here. Lewandowski covered up a lot of patches for Bayern over the last years because of his goals. He simply did. And now he's gone, or you allowed him to leave, which is absolutely ridiculous. I would have given him the sun just to stay to keep that, together for a minute until you find that striker. They don't have that striker. So you're not wrong there. I think they keep Thomas Tuchel. I think they've got to start spending money. And here's the change I see, JJ, more than anything else. And Mike, you can let me know what you think about this. I think you'll start to see Bayern Munich breaking their own transfer policy. You are going to start to see Bayern Munich spending over 100 million. We know they've got the money. We know they've got the finances. They certainly have the foundation to support that. So if they want to compete in the Champions League, and now apparently if they want to compete domestically, they're going to need to start to sign some of the world's best players. Get away from the we don't spend 100 plus million. I don't agree with that anymore. Yeah. The game's moved on.
Just a follow-up question on that specifically. Do you think that also means that Bayern break their policy in the future of appointing players or former players who know the club inside out and actually go for some of the great executives that you have in the German game? Because it seems like the Bundesliga has some of the best sort of off the field, staff members because of the way that business gets done so far ahead of time. The scouting is excellent. Recruitment is second to none. Do you think that we start to see Bayern picking off some of the best talents from their rival clubs off the pitch as well as on it?
Yeah, but I would throw in the rest of Europe to that as well, because if you think of their transfer policy, they've always tried to go for a striker who has played in the league. Few times they've gone outside and brought a striker in from outside to have success. But I think what their transfer policy would normally be is that someone who's proven in the Bundesliga, who can score goals in the Bundesliga, they try to get from there. So, there's no doubt that they've got to try and change their whole policy here going forward.
Yeah, and I'm so happy you're saying that in terms of transfer policies. Look at the German Bundesliga this year. There's no real proven goal scorer. Nkunku and Kolomouani, those are probably your tried and true tested. Yes, Füllkrug, he's injured right now, but if you're having a policy where you're going Bundesliga through and through and it's not happening in your league, you have to go elsewhere in Europe. And some of the biggest strikers in the world are outside of Germany. And you got to pay to play if you want to compete on multiple facets if you're Bayern Munich. And when we go back to Thomas Tuchel, that question hovering of, Bayern, they haven't performed. So much blame could be easily directed at him. And I'm so happy that you mentioned that Tuchel walked into a burning house on fire before he even took the job. I think that Thomas Tuchel, the biggest problem with him, these aren't his players. It's so difficult, so different when he was at Chelsea. He was able to bring in the likes of Thiago Silva, able to have a couple people that he could turn to, he could rely on, have that experience with. I could see a potential fire sale happening at Bayern Munich. We've already talked about Sadio Mane getting out. There's disgruntled players that you need to get rid of to rebuild a better team.
Mike, can I just say something real quickly? And JJ, please follow up here. I know we're discussing a lot in the Bundesliga, and I'm very happy we're doing so. And producer Des is fed up on my voice. But at the same time, do you not think it was a bit of a stupid mistake in letting Nagelsmann just leave at that time? JJ, what do you think about that? That's weird, no?
I mean, I think in terms of what was happening on the pitch, the timing was weird. I mean, we discussed this, but also, we've had you with your ear to the ground for months telling us that there's something not quite right at Bayern. I kind of, saw what you were getting at with the issues with Neuer after his injury and some of the uproar between the staff behind the scenes. So yeah, I mean, I do think in many ways that it was perhaps against what Bayern would have normally done to sort of let Nagelsmann see out the season and then potentially bring Tuchel in. But also, let's not forget, Tuchel was in high demand. There were a number of clubs, opening up positions. They wanted him in, and basically Bayern had to act then. And they knew that they weren't going to continue with Nagelsmann beyond the end of the season. So, I think Bayern also have to look at it and say, look, our choice, we wanted Thomas Tuchel as our number one candidate. The price to pay for him, the true price to pay for him, was winning no trophies this season. And they have to face up to that. They have to embrace it, and they have to move forward, knowing that they paid a high price in order to be able to bring Tuchel in, because you could argue that, okay, Champions League success would have been unlikely under Nagelsmann, but they may well have ended up Bundesliga champions and possibly Pokal winners too.
Last one here, Mike. Thomas Tuchel, would he have preferred to have gone to Tottenham if he considered where he's at right now with Bayern?
Oh man, no, because it's.
Are you sure? You see what's going on?
Oh my gosh, you're damned if you do it's a catch-22. You're damned if you do on one side. You're absolutely damned if you don't on the other. But man, Spurs are just so damn Spursy. At least with Bayern,
what's the rock and the hard place in that? Like in that choice.
yeah. There's a cold place in hell for the person who has to decide between those two clubs and those two options. But I still think it'll turn out.
Oh, it could be Harry Kane this summer.
Well, geez, he could have Harry Kane without dealing with the absolute shithousery that's happening at Tottenham. Look, for Bayern, at least he's dealing with a club that is FC Hollywood that aren't going to win the Bundesliga. I still think Dortmund win it, but they have Champions League. For Tottenham, you're dealing with a whole bag of crap. You're most likely not going to get Europe. Your best striker may leave. I mean, that is, oof, man, stay away from that.
Germany are about to disown Thomas Tuchel because of the mess up he's made at Bayern Munich. Let's not forget that one here. Vic jumping in and saying Bayern Munich ruined their season in the executive room, just like Juventus did, which is a great comment right there.